When you listen to the conversation surrounding Game Pass, you have to realize one thing. Both Xbox and PlayStation are doing essentially the same thing with one major differential between both of them. In the case of Xbox, they bring their own published games day one to Game Pass. There's no, differential in that case except for the tiers. So if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you pretty much gain the highest benefit. There's also the side about cost. Now, this is one that's arbitrary. I've seen somebody say, if you're not going to talk about Game Pass being $20 a month, well, here's the thing. You still think Game Pass is $20 a month because you refuse to look around. The market is competitive enough for you to be able to find Game Pass Ultimate keys. I've told this to even some Xbox players who many of them didn't even really know. They were basically looking at Game Pass on Microsoft's website and going, this is way too expensive, of which, to be honest, $20 a month was pretty much where I canceled at first. And I was like, hold on, I'm a PC gamer. I know exactly where to get keys that would be affordable to me. In fact, even less expensive than OG Game Pass as it was. Now, with this in mind, one of the, podcasts here that talks about PlayStation stuff got clipped by audience member Astro Cyborg. And in that particular clip, they're talking about Game Pass. I want us to go ahead and listen so we can see what kinds of, preconceived notions are held about Game Pass, and perhaps if there's anything that we can glean from it in this particular regard. Okay, so you guys ready? Let's go.
They keep saying that it must be able to get on Game Pass, or a game has to be able to run on the Series S. And they're turning third parties away because of that requirement. And it's not that they're turning them away, like a third party's coming up and saying, or I should rephrase that, it's not just that they're turning them away when a third party comes up and says, can I have an exemption for putting this on the Series S? We don't see any value in doing this. And Xbox goes, no, you must do it if you want to put it on our platform. So the third party goes, well, stick it. I don't need that minimal margin that I may get from putting it on Game Pass.
Whoa. Which third-party developer went to Xbox and asked for an exception and Xbox turned them down and then they said, stick it, we're not going to make it on Xbox? Is he mentioning Black Myth Wukong? Because if that's the case, that case has been closed from a technical side. We already got to see the Turk do a lot of testing with different kinds of hardware, hamstringing the hardware and all, and seeing the thing play on hardware that is less powerful than the Series S. Basically, Nib had to block the Turk because the Turk pretty much sat on, the entire case and ensured that he pointed out that the conversation about the Series S from the developers at Game Science, it makes no sense. And the developers at Game Science not mentioning anything about exclusivity also makes no sense, because Baldur's Gate 3 developers, they mentioned ahead of time that there was no PlayStation exclusivity on their game. Remember when, what's his name, tweeted, MBG tried to say that it was an exclusive to PlayStation. And Cornwell came out and said, nope, very AFK, that's his username on Twitter, that it's not a PlayStation exclusive. And Baldur's Gate 3 is also going to be getting the co-op mode that Microsoft exempted them from when they wanted to launch the game. So I'm here literally 30 seconds in, and I'm just hearing a bunch of conjecture that is pretty much coming out of nowhere. This is a PlayStation podcast?
If I get anything because of what's in there, or who's going to buy it. Or you get things like with Phantom Blade Zero coming, and you've got Wukong, Black Myth Wukong that's just happened, and others.
Phantom Blade Zero, Money Had It. Wukong, we're not clear. The developers won't say anything if it was Money Had It or not.
They're not interested in investing the time or the pain to go through to try and get it on that platform on day one. So
Phantom Blade Zero was probably Money Had It. It's not interest. It's that they decided to take money from PlayStation and block it from going there. You see, I wish that these folk would actually tell you the exact truth, because if they would tell you the truth, you'd see that Pearl Abyss pretty much turned down a limited timed exclusive deal that would have barred the game from going to Xbox. Do y'all see the difference? It's not that the developers are not interested in porting their game to Xbox. It's that these developers, like Phantom Blade Zero's developers, have taken investment from PlayStation. Stellar Blaze developers have taken investment from PlayStation so as not to put that game on Xbox or to delay an Xbox release. You see, these folk would not say it that way. Do you know why? Because what that does is it undermines this whole talk about Xbox exclusives, because their exclusives are basically third-party money-hatted games that they use to pad their ecosystem. Their studios take 6 years, 5 years to make, games at that cadence. They can't do the, constant cycle, so the third-party exclusives have to come in. It also undermines the entire conversation because what this represents is a waste to PlayStation's own ecosystem, because they're spending money outside their studios rather than investing it within their studios. That's why they have to say and frame it that way. They're not interested in putting their game on Xbox. Really? The developers over at Final Fantasy have come out to express their interest on making sure players can actually play their game, having been an exclusive game with PlayStation. So it's a developer by developer thing, but I've not seen the developer that said, we're just not interested. And if they say they're not interested, well, great. Maybe Final Fantasy will get a chance when it comes to Xbox, or maybe other devs will get a chance when they come to Xbox. Or wait, maybe they'll buy their publishing rights like Kojima and bring Death Stranding, a PlayStation game, by the way, to Xbox. All right, let's keep listening. It's very interesting.
I'll go, well, I'll just bang it out on PC and PlayStation and maybe Nintendo, depending on what's coming. And Xbox can just suck it up.
You would go ahead and make a Nintendo port and ignore an Xbox port when Thomas Mahler, the guy who made, I think it's Ori and the one that made No Rest for the Wicked, said that they're essentially the same hardware? Interesting.
And they're missing out on third-party games in that respect.
Because Sony is money-hatting a lot of the third-party games. Just say it.
And Phil's standing there even this week saying that the Series S requirements will stay in place.
Of course. Because it's possible for you to be able to make games on the Series S. You see, these are the same people that would yell and say, you see, Xbox is not getting you games on the Series S. You bought the, Series S thinking you were going to be able to play next-gen games, and Xbox has failed you. If Xbox were to say to developers, all right, we're going to remove the, parity. And when they say parity, the parity clause is not that they release in the same performance metric, because both hardware specs have their performance metrics and their limitations already listed by the time you buy them. It's just that both games need to come out at the same time with the same features. That's it. That's all it is. And developers, most of them have been making games for less powerful hardware. So this is not a problem for them. It's only a problem in the PlayStation podcast realm that you're going to hear this stuff being said, because when you look around with developers, you start seeing some really interesting stuff that they're all launching these games. After they come out and maybe one technical person comes out and whines on Twitter, they'll launch the game on Xbox. They'll launch it on the Series S. That's the trend I've been seeing. Right?
The only reason they have got Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox is because he relented on that one point. That's the only reason it's on there. Could you imagine if he dug his heels in on that?
What would that have done? The developers at Larian would have lost money. That was on the developers of Larian, by the way. In fact, if anything, I think it's an exception that he made, probably with the promise of them going ahead to bring that thing to the Series S. What are you talking about? And, fans wanted the game because when the game showed up on Xbox, they bought the heck out of that thing. But most PlayStation players, that game filtered most of you out. I mean, because this is the thing. They always talk about this, but well, let me keep listening.
Continuation of this issue. It's like they're not learning from what publishers and developers and the broader public are telling them.
No, it's you guys in the PlayStation podcast realm that have to frame it this way. The publishers are happy to publish on the Series S. If we look at even some of the highest selling titles this year, right? If we just use, say, just the Steam chart, because it shows you, what games all showed up this year in terms of the best games, you will see that majority of them made their way to the Series S with no problems. All this talk is just so weird. Like, there are no games that these people can play. Like, you just keep saying that. Elden Ring and its DLC, there's a Series S version. PUBG's got a Series S version. Space Marine's got a Series S version. Right? Think about it. Call of Duty Series S. Helldivers 2 could play on Series S, but they decided not to. Power World Series S. Baldur's Gate 3 Series S. Which games are these people talking about? All these games, as long as they have a console version, you can play them on the Series S. Stalker 2 Series S. Dragon's Dogma 2 Series S. So I just can't understand where this whole thing is. It's weird.
If he's not learning his mistakes, he's going to keep making them.
You're making a mistake, and you're not learning from that mistake, by the way.
But a lot of devs also don't want their games in those servers going day one.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't want that, man.
Well, a lot of devs don't want their games on Game Pass. Who's forcing them? Who's forcing developers to put their games on Game Pass? If anything, the news that we heard was PlayStation actually put in their contracts in ways that developers could not put their games on Game Pass if they wanted to. I mean, am I missing something here? Do you see how this narrative basically is never addressed? I mean, I thought I was crazy when I remembered that, right? So Sony, according to this particular article from The Verge that Tom Warren wrote, he writes that Microsoft has claimed Sony pays for blocking rights to stop developers from adding their contents to Xbox Game Pass. The explosive claims are part of documents filed with Brazil's national competition regulator as part of a review for Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Isn't that crazy? It says Microsoft's ability to continue expanding Game Pass has been hampered by Sony's desire to inhibit such growth. Claims Microsoft in an August 9th filing to an Administrative Council of Economic Defense, as translated from Portuguese. Sony pays for blocking rights to prevent developers from adding contents to Game Pass and other competing subscriptions. This is a PlayStation podcast? They don't bother to look at the prevailing evidence around. Everyone just talks. Oh, I'm unimpressed.
Like, because as much as you see like some of these developers, it's small developers. Yeah, Game Pass helped us, blah, blah, blah. Those types of stories are few and far in between. And again, a developer that's putting 300 million, 200 million, 150 million, 100 million into making a game, they're gonna want the return. And people say, well, Microsoft will just pay whatever the difference is on that. And I'm like, bro, again, you people do not understand.
No. Persona, I don't, with all due respect, I don't know who you are, but I don't think you understand. Let me go ahead and put it out for you. People are listening to this stuff, guys. For the sake of, full explanation, and this video is probably longer than I would love to make it, but I think it's necessary. There's an article from September 2023 from GameSpot that says here's some sense of how much money Microsoft pays for day one Game Pass launches. Now, be very, very wary of this, because not only does Game Pass do day one payments, they also make payments for games that have already launched outside of Game Pass. They bring those games to the Game Pass platform. Some of them are big games that would ordinarily not just go to, say, PlayStation Plus, but would be on Game Pass because Microsoft is willing to spend more money on those games. So again, I don't understand what these folk are saying, that some of these devs don't want their games to be on Game Pass. As if to say that Game Pass only works with devs bringing their games day one to the platform, which is essentially an obfuscation of the reality. But here it is. Microsoft reportedly expects publishers to ask for millions and millions to put their games on Game Pass. The big Xbox document leak has revealed many things that Microsoft never intended to be made public. And one of those is how much money Microsoft might pay a publisher to bring games to Game Pass on launch day. Game Pass getting day one releases is a major perk and incentive to encourage people to sign up and stay subscribers, and Microsoft might pay top dollar for this. Xbox Vice President Sarah Bond sent an email to Microsoft's gaming CEO Phil Spencer and Xbox CFO Tim Storer, among others, detailing what it might cost to secure some major third-party games coming to Game Pass on launch day. It is important to note that the prices mentioned below are not actual prices paid by Microsoft, as many of these games never came to Game Pass, nor are they even negotiated or necessarily discussed with any of the companies in question. So they're throwing out, their spit figures. They seem to only be expectations of what a deal might cost from Microsoft's perspective, and even beyond payments, there would surely be an arrangement of other factors at play for a company when deciding whether to launch their new game into Game Pass. With those caveats out of the way, the document mentions what's described as expected partner ask. So again, these partners, the publishers on their platform, actually ask for money and say, hey, if you want our game to come for Game Pass, or if Microsoft approaches them, they say, give us all of this stuff. And Xbox, they look, if they want, they oblige. If they don't want, they say, go on. We're not gonna negotiate. For a range of games in 2022 and early 2023, as well as games already released, the spreadsheet also includes columns like for likely to close and wow factor. For GTA 5, Microsoft was expecting Take-Two to ask for 12 to 15 million per month. The game has been added and removed from Game Pass multiple times over the years, and it's back right now. For other games, only a single payment was listed, like $250 million for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, basically dev costs. $300 million for Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and $250 million for Mortal Kombat 1 to come to Game Pass at launch. Assassin's Creed Rift, the code name for Mirage, was listed as $100 million to get into Game Pass for release. The document also mentions a new generation version of Red Dead Redemption 2, with Microsoft expecting to Take-Two to ask for $5 million per month to get it as a day and date title for Game Pass. Baldur's Gate 3 from Larian Studios is also listed in the document at $5 million, when Larian co-founder seemingly reacted with bewilderment at the news, posting on Twitter, "I'd love to meet that analyst." So they were basically weighing what they'd pay to get these big games on Game Pass. As for the smaller games, there's also a report out there. Man, I'm doing these people's job for them. Oh my gosh. That talks about the different payments that Xbox had made to its, ID at Xbox developers, basically some of them indie devs and all. And they had paid, at least at that point in time, almost $1 billion that they had given out in payments. So these folk just come on a podcast. They just talk. And there's nothing to back up their claims at the end of the day. They're just literally just spitballing, and hip firing a lot of what it is that they say on these podcasts. Dude, I'm only 4 minutes. I'm only, how many minutes in is this? I'm 2 minutes in, and it's 8 minutes long. How do people listen to this? Let me keep going. Maybe I can make it through.
How this stuff works. They're not going to keep paying for shit, especially if the subscription numbers are not growing at a rate that they want. It's crazy. It's crazy.
They're not going to keep paying for it, except what is that even? What the heck are these folk even talking about? If my understanding is correct, I cannot believe that this is what people have to go through. This is why people are misinformed. This is why people are misinformed. They're not going to keep paying for stuff yet. If my recollection serves me well, I've been playing Sniper Elite Resistance on Game Pass this month. If my recollection serves me correctly, there was an announcement recently of what games are coming to Game Pass. And there usually is, and there have been recently added to Game Pass, a bunch of third-party stuff and even some first-party stuff coming pretty down the road. So Xbox is actually doing this while these folk are saying that they're not. Or are we going to say that, the games are not big titles? Because if that's how we're going to play it, Sniper Elite, you can't say that. Maybe you can call it, mid-sized title. But how about the other AAA titles that have also come to Game Pass? How about games like Lies of P, Wolong that came in 2023? I don't understand where a lot of this stuff is coming from, guys. This is really strange to me, anyways. Quite strange.
I thought his responses to that thing was disingenuous in the sense, like, people don't develop for these handheld PCs. Like, they are just PCs with different APUs in them that they take PC games and people scale them down to run at that TDP.
Yeah.
He's talking about like, oh, it's great that we target the S because that'll help it run on these handheld PCs. And it's like, nobody's building to the handheld PC spec.
That's not true. What? What the? Oh my gosh. Final Fantasy's developers just came out And one of their big chant was how their game is actually spec'd for the Steam Deck. That would entail them developing for the Steam Deck, right? In fact, there's a little development kit that you can go ahead and download. Steamworks. I have a version of it on my Steam. Let me go ahead and show you. Let me show this stuff, guys. Oh my gosh. Maybe I don't know. I'm not doing a podcast though. I'm not interested. So check this out. This is the Steam the Steam developer kit, right? In my Steam library right here. This is Steamworks SDK redistribution. What I can do with this and what is designed for is I can actually make a build of my Unreal Engine game, right? I would click this library, but I don't want to NDA myself because a bunch of stuff in here. I can go ahead and make a package of the game, and I can pretty much package it for PC and use Steam SDK and put it on my Steam Deck and optimize for it. That's what this is for. That's like active development for a handheld. It's not just scaling it down. Like, you literally have to do the work. You got to check, just what you would do with any other developer kit. Any other development kit. That's what a Steam Deck can do. You can do a lot of things with the Steam Deck, just like you can do with an Xbox, Series or Series S or Series X console. You can actually do it. And so, yes, there is development that is actually geared towards the handheld. So if their take is that Phil Spencer said, our spec on the Series S gives us, a room to be able to go ahead and develop his handhelds, he's correct. He's very correct. Because that's how development for these handhelds works. And again, I don't like talking about the technical discussions because, again, last time I said something about technical, I was very shocked at an audience member's response where they tried to basically belittle my own technical knowledge on game development like I'm some kind of a tinkerer, like I'm not even serious about it. I was quite surprised because I was like, wow, I would never have thought that somebody would basically take that position, but it is what it is.
Unless there's their PC games at a scale down, and I watch billions of videos of like, what is the best settings to get this game to run on my handheld PC? And it's like, that's that the developer's not helping me. They didn't develop to that spec. Like, I do think Steam is great with it.
Some do. Some actively do. In fact, more and more are doing right now. You'll notice another thing on Steam. And man, there's a lot of education that needs to be done here. Let's look at a game like, I don't know, God of War Ragnarok, right? We have to go into Steam store. There's what's called Steam Deck Verified. In many cases, many games were backtracked to go ahead and, essentially figure out whether they were verified for the Steam Deck or playable on the Steam Deck. It's a little thing right here, Steam Deck compatibility, right here. You see it on the bottom right corner here? If it tells you that it's verified, it means it can be played on the Steam Deck. Again, once again, because it's a PC, you'd have to do some settings. If you have mods, if you have maybe say some things installed, you have to make your tweaks. But the developers have ensured that their game can run on the Steam Deck. In fact, the PlayStation game, God of War Ragnarok, won Best Game on Steam Deck award. Oh my gosh. This is interesting, guys.
It's the Steam Deck certification to kind of let you know that it's good to run on it, but that doesn't mean that the games are built for that spec. So
absolutely is. They would have run that game through the Steam SDK and tested it to make sure, and then right before they launch, they can boldly tell you and say this game is Steam Deck verified. In fact, right in front of our eyes, Final Fantasy, 7 Rebirth just did it. They made a trailer where their developers was showing it before the game launched on PC, saying our game can play on the Steam Deck. How would he have known? How would he have been able to make that claim if he did not test it out and optimize it for the Steam Deck, or a studio did not do that? Once again, this is very strange. This is the game right here. I don't know what these gentlemen are actually alluding to. Wow.
Him talking
they're
about
an add-on.
It made no sense. Like if you're building to a closed system with the S, and it doesn't have all the features of the X. Like it doesn't have performance modes. A lot of them skip.
All that is developer added. All that is developer added. Just like your PS5 doesn't have all of the modes as the PS5 Pro. The developer looks and says that the PS5 Pro can support these modes, so we add them. The PS5 cannot, so we don't add them. Wow.
And nobody's building. It's a PC. These handheld. It's a market that's that's there, but it's not a spec that people are building for.
I don't know, guys. I cannot. People listen to this stuff and they come all over the place, and all they're doing is just. This is why a lot of people make claims and boldly make them from the perspective of them being confident about what it is that they're saying. But a lot of these guys need to do a lot of work, man. They need to do a lot of homework before they can sit there and run a podcast and talk about this stuff. Or is the standard that you can just get on a microphone? Is that the standard? Because if that was a standard, okay, I guess. But in reality, guys, how can a podcast come out and say something like this and try to pretty much, throw shade and cast doubt on a statement that was made by somebody who runs an entire gaming publisher and hardware maker? While we can already see within the industry that these folks, because the Steam Deck verification badge is actually the only handheld verification that we have. Like Rogue Ally, I don't know if there's a Rogue Ally, verification. Maybe there is, or certification. Maybe there is. I don't know any, but Steam Deck is the only one that we have. And we already have access to their process because they make it available for developers. So if this is basically the information that's out there, no wonder a lot of people are misinformed. I'm sorry, not sorry, but this is madness, guys. Absolute madness. I gotta go, man. I can't. Thanks for watching. If you've made it to the end, thank you for your patience. Peace out.